Alright. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the streams. We're once again doing... Well, it's good to see you, Eclectic. I'm glad to see you. Sorry, I had a bit of a moment there. Welcome back. Welcome to... Our Life Beginnings and Always. Last time, for those that weren't here, we did birthday, which was a birthday party for one of our classmates over here that had a Jeremy moment. I appreciate you trying. Even you being here is enough for me, so I am very glad. Like I said, we've got birthday, which we did, which was a birthday party for a classmate where we had a run-in with Jeremy and enjoyed our time in a bouncy castle. It was great. Following that, we did Wave up here, which was surfing with Cove and enjoying a nice warm summer day while wishing days were longer. So, to keep everything continuing, I'm going to pick one from the Derek moments. I'm thinking Boardwalk or Lemonade, because we gotta get everything but Soiree done, because I want to do that. So I think we're gonna do Lemonade first. It was afternoon on a sleepy summer day. Nothing urgent needed to be done. No real plans had been made. You and your company were simply hanging out around the local beach, free as the breeze. Sorry about the kitty. It was one of those good days where the world was your own and you had your two close friends there to enjoy it with. Derek was on your left and Cove was at your right. 3 pairs of footprints trailed along in the soft white sand behind you. Derek had only been dropped off minutes ago. Instead of going inside your house or Cove's, you'd simply started to walk. It was definitely hot out. Southern California tended to get that way. But it wasn't so bad that you had to hide away from the beating rays of the sun. Well, good, we got a location now. Sunset Bird is Southern California. Cove's hands were in his pockets. He spoke out while facing away from you. Instead, he lazily watched the unchanging horizon. What do you guys want to do? You and Derek took on matching squints. Normally, there'd be endless answers to that, but the lackadaisical mood made it feel like trying to solve a math problem in a dream. You had nothing. Your thoughts were moving as slowly as the tide that inched towards the shore bit by bit. Finally, the resident problem solver offered a possibility. With a yawn and a tall stretch of his arms over his head. Want to walk to the grocery store? What? Cove twisted his face to the opposite side and stared at Derek. A stuttering laugh expressed his disbelief. Why would we go grocery shopping? With a shrug, Derek scratched his cheek and explained, well, it's probably different here, but where I live, the closest place to get stuff isn't a convenience store or a mall or anything, it's a grocery store. Sometimes me and my bros will take a trip down there and see what we can find. Our choices, that sounds neat. Wouldn't you find groceries? I'll try, if you want to. You stared at him with the same questioning look as Cove. You nodded along with the explanation. You've got some interesting hobbies, Derek, you teased. I'm gonna joke. Wouldn't you find groceries? Derek just laughed. The puzzled reactions from his two friends didn't deter him at all. It's really not like normal errands. You can get anything you want. There are a lot of things at the store you never even think about when you're there with your parents, and a list of stuff for the house. Cove's formerly heavy, drooping lids lifted high, showing his bright blue eyes. He glanced between you and Derek for final confirmation that you were seriously doing this today. Derek had complete confidence in his stance. He's got a point there, Cove. The corners of your neighbor's mouth perked up as well. Okay, let's go grocery shopping. Cool! It was another successful bit of improvising on Derek's part. He put his hands on his hips eagerly. I'm pretty sure I know where your store is. You do. But the two of you should probably lead the way. Leave it to us. Kitty, 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 kitty. Comet cat. Cove puffed his chest out with pride. He was a true local to the town after being there for so many years. And your walk continued, now with an actual destination in mind. You retraced the remnants of your steps in the sand, heading back to the neighborhood, and then up the hill and out of the residential area. When you turned onto Main Street, the grocery store was already visible in the distance. Hey, yeah, I got a kitty cat. And I'm honored to be second monitor during Overwatch time. I'm glad you're here. When you turned onto Main Street, the grocery store was already visible in the distance. It also wasn't going anywhere, so you enjoyed the stroll together. You would arrive when you arrived. Derek continued to sell the concept of his plan by recounting stories of him and his brother's past adventures in grocery land. So we'd gotten super lucky because the discount rack had a whole cherry pie for way off. Me, Jorge, and Nico pooled our pocket change to get it, and then we had an entire pie just like that. We sat outside on a bench near the store and ate it from the pan. It was cut into 6 slices. I only let the kids have 1 piece each. It was already a lot of sugar. I didn't want to make them food sick. I tried to come up with how we were going to explain half a pie to Mom, but Nico had his own idea. He took a slice he wasn't allowed to eat and instead threw it at Jorge. Oh my god. Cove's mouth gaped open at the audacity. Derek laughed out loud at the memory and the response it got in the present. He'd been watching too many cartoons with food fights and pies to the face, I guess. You'd believe that. If there was one thing Nicholas loved, it was Derek, and if there was another, it was cars, and if there was a third, it was copying things he'd seen others do. Obviously, Jorge didn't let that slide, and he took the 5th slice of the pie and squished it right into Nicholas's head. His hair was covered in dark cherry goo. It was a mess, but if you can't beat them, join him. If you can't beat 'em, join 'em. I dumped the last of the pie on myself. Why? It stopped them from fighting over it, and they think they would have ended up feeling bad if they got messy and I didn't. Nicholas doesn't think very far ahead. Oh, what did you do next? We found a water fountain around the back of the grocery store and tried to scrape off as much pie as possible. Then we went home. Mom still figured out what happened and we all had to take real baths. That was a good time. A fond smile settled on Derek's face. He glanced up to the sky while getting lost in an entirely private moment of reminiscing. Cove was still reflecting on the story with amusement. It was always a treat when Derek had the space to share a tale, though it was hard for real-life experience to compare to the legend of Baby Castle. My options? That's adorable. I hope we'll find a whole pie. Huh, grocery stores are more exciting than I thought. You can giggle at his storytelling, or you can shake your head at how ridiculous it was. I am going to say grocery stores are more exciting than I thought. Maybe. Cove ruffled a hand through his hair, possibly considering how it might have felt to have an entire pie crushed into his locks. He smirked. A pie throwing fight is way more memorable than I would have guessed. The most unexpected thing that happened to me when out shopping was the time that I got a free balloon and accidentally popped it pretty much immediately. Oh shoot. It's Derek's turn to chuckle in nervous disbelief. His grin shook just imagining it. It's okay. Rest in peace, Dolphin Balloon. Rest in pieces, Dolphin Balloon. That was so terrible. That was so sad, but also really funny. I'm sorry that's how our first shopping trip ended, Cove. He smiled quietly over the memory. Rest in pieces, Dolphin Balloon. Yeah, rest in peace. The conversation stayed on the topic of store-related outings. Derek had plenty more experiences to share. The chat didn't last much longer, though. Soon you crossed the street and arrived at Sunset Bird's local mom-and-pop grocery store. You and your two co-shoppers headed right through the automatic doors. A shiver went down your spine when you stepped out of the afternoon heat and into the powerful air-conditioned store. Why are grocery stores always so cold? One will never know, I suppose. Shiny, orderly aisles stretched out in front of you. Each one was tightly packed with a plethora of brightly packaged merchandise. To some people, the rows and rows of items might have been a slog to go through, but seen through Derek's eyes, it was a scavenger hunt with endless opportunities. Though it was Cove who spoke first. Do we need a cart? Nope. Probably not. Derek casually waved that off, eyes still fixated ahead on the altar of consumerism. We're here for quality. Need to buy a ton of things? Oh, wait. Cove suddenly burrowed his hands into his pockets once again. He tucked them in deep, but didn't find what he'd gone in search of. I don't have my wallet. It's at home. Me neither. I thought we'd just be in the neighborhood all day. Yeah. It's cool. I figured. Derek's lack of reaction couldn't smooth over Cove's obvious response to the situation. His wavy eyebrows pulled down together. We could have stopped by to get it before we left. Nah, this was my idea, so it's my treat. We've got like $8 and some change. That's enough for all of us to spend around a few dollars or put together for one thing. That's gonna be plenty. Thanks. Not even $10 between us. Wow, it's like we're kids again. I promise I'll pay you back. Yeah, that'd be more than enough for this. You smile gratefully. I promise I'll pay you back. $3? Not even that much? It's really no big deal. I still want to. You're my friend. You've offered to pay for something for me. I'm gonna pay you back. I will too. Fine, you guys win. Cove's hand finally deserted his pockets and one came up to rub his forearm instead. Okay, thanks. Let's get something good. Derek took a step forward as he cheered. Alright, here we go. You went down the nearest aisle, swiveling your head to check both sides of the path as you swung your currently empty of goods arm through the air. The first stop of the market expedition was the discount rack in the back. You didn't have the same luck as Derek and his little brothers. It was the only place in the store that was barren. One shelf had several dented cartons of chicken stock. Stuffed in the bottom of the rack was a bag of plain rolls. The sight was pretty pathetic. Too bad. He shrugged like it was nothing, but his words told a different story. Would have been easy if there was a pie here, or a cake, or one of those pans with a bunch of cinnamon rolls. Wistfully, Cove continued to mumble a list of miscellaneous pastries that you might have potentially been able to get had the fates aligned. Good, this keeps things interesting. We can still get the stock. It's such a good deal. Sorry, Cove. I was hoping for cake this time, too. You shook your head with a smile. Good, this keeps things interesting. Definitely. There's still plenty of possibilities. And if push comes to shove, we could afford a smaller treat, like getting 3 boxes with 1 slice of cake each. We couldn't eat more than that anyway. Maybe you would eat just one. Cove could have eaten half the pie himself. Yeah, speak for yourself, Derek. 1 slice wouldn't cut it. You don't need that much dessert, Cove. You shrugged, amused. Cove could have eaten half the pie by himself. Wow, alright. It's a good thing we didn't find one then. Hey! You pushed past the already pilfered treasure chest and continued to chat. You passed cereals, pastas, and sauces, an aisle full of chip bags and soda packs, and more. The dry goods and canned foods now behind you, you arrived at the produce section. The arrangement of goods was much more open than the narrow rows of shelves. The three of you could spread out more in between pallets and baskets of fresh fruits and vegetables. Derek grabbed an avocado to check its ripeness. Cove stared at the watermelons, appreciating the fruit, but his blank face made it obvious he had no idea how to tell if they were good quality or not. Then a recognizable crackling sound sputtered to life. Both the boys with you lifted their heads. Without conversing, the two rushed to the back wall where the leafy greens were piled up. A light spray of mist burst from the sprinklers, raining down gently on the produce. Cove and Derek stuck their hands into the damp air while snickering. Derek rubbed his hands together to pretend he was washing them. Cove lifted his hands up to be as close to the source of water as possible. You also had your hands in the veggie mist? You thought the two of them were so silly? That was weird. You stuck your face into the misting. You thought the two of them were so silly. There was something other than water in the air for both of them to react the same way without having to talk about it. Their impromptu public shower ended shortly, and it was back to the center of the space for them. Knowing grins were shared between the pair as you regrouped, there was a comfort in realizing someone else had the same silly habit as you. With the distraction over and the main goal unresolved, Cove helplessly glanced around the store. He was totally stumped. There's a lot of things I like, but I don't have to get any of it now. How do we pick? There was a whine in his tone, and he crossed his arms out of frustration. Derek kept it light, the same as he would when dealing with his much younger siblings. Dude, you need more imagination. Turn lemons into lemonade. Actually, wait, yeah, that's what we should do. We can get some lemons and make our own lemonade. The concept struck Cove just as much as Derek. Oh, that would be cool. Now that's an idea. Thanks. Derek marched with purpose to a box that was heavy with mesh bags of the desired yellow citrus. He tapped a finger to his chin, then bounced from one foot to the other. Derek was suddenly a lemon, 2 bags, one in each hand. The bottom of each pack was set against his upturned palms. Derek jiggled the lemons to try and get a sense of their weight. Finally, the bag on the right was deemed superior, and Derek carefully laid the unwanted bundle back onto the stack. Then he lifted the winner high, showing it off to Cove and you. I've got my thing. It's only $3. Your turn. This time, Cove didn't look aimlessly at what was in front of him. He shut his eyes and put all his mind's power into conjuring up an answer. Soon he stole a quick glance at Derek's lemons through squinted eyes, and then he took his turn. Come on. Let's do it! He made another trip across the length of the store, this time at a much brisker pace. Cove had a target in sight, even if you couldn't see it yet. He blew past all the food aisles, the pet shelves, and the cleaning supplies. He only stopped when you'd made it to the one random aisle in the store with cheap plastic kids' toys. This is it. His words were eager and certain. There was a childish excitement to Cove that was fitting for the location. He reached a hand into the wall with the yo-yos and bubble blowers. His fingers landed on a baggie of water balloons. Drinking lemonade is going to make me want to have fun outside, too. We can use this for that. Perfect plan, Cove. Good work. I knew you could do it. It's great you found something. I'm amazed you didn't get food. All right. You grinned at the two. I think I'm just going to grin at them. For all his previous indecision, the sweetness of victory was all the more worth it for Cove. His selection was even cheaper than Derek's, $2 and a bit of change. All that was left of Derek's money was $3 and your choice of prize. Derek patiently cradled his bag of lemons while Cove watched you expectantly, excited to see what the final piece of the puzzle would be. You reflected on the theme that was forming, your own preferences, and the shareability of different goods. In the end, you opened your mouth and said, chips to snack on, candy to eat with lemonade, little umbrellas to put in the drinks, discount rolls. Don't want anything? Get gum, a yo-yo, or the bubble blowers. I want the little umbrellas to put in the drinks. Excellent, Lane. You got to lead the way around out of the toy aisle and back into the thick of the grocery store traffic. You wound around the aisles until you found the right spot. It took another minute to pick the best little umbrellas, and then you were done. With items in hand, you, Derek, and Cove went through the checkout line. Derek dug out his pocket change and paid for your odd arrangement of items. None of you bothered to get a bag. Derek's was already in one, and you and Cove could easily carry your things on your own. After a successful grocery trip, you returned to the great outdoors to walk back to the neighborhood. This kind of outing reminded you that it wasn't what you were doing. It counted. It was who you were doing it with. Yes, I also find it nice. I thought they were going to make us get the rest of the ingredients for lemonade, which is sugar. But no, we're just going to use the stuff that we have at home. Outside, you gathered in front of the crosswalk and waited for a chance to get back on the main sidewalk. While standing around, it was unanimously decided that you'd bring your goods to Cove's house and make the lemonade there. Your home had the risk of Elizabeth deciding she wanted a pre-dinner snack. She wouldn't appreciate having a lemonade making operation in the way. There was no worry of that in the Holden condo. Cove's mom and dad were out, and even if they weren't, they were his parents, not his bossy big siblings. They wouldn't even dream of throwing the three of you out of the kitchen to use it instead. Derek was thinking along similar lines based on what he said next. Honestly, man, I can't wrap my head around what it's like to not have any siblings hanging around the house at all. I don't mean that you're weird for that, it's just gotta be so different. Is it? I have my dad here. My mom is staying right now, too. Yeah, but it's not the same. Parents take care of the kids, and the kids have a bunch of stuff they need. Every day has to be about me and my brothers. If we go out to eat, will everyone like the stuff there, or will Jorge be too picky? Are we all old enough to do whatever the thing is, or is Nicholas too little? My birthday is the only time that I can do everything that I want for the whole time, and I still choose to keep my bros in mind even though my parents don't make me. I don't mind, but it's crazy imagining a world where I don't have to do that. Huh. I hadn't thought about that. Cove's eyes darted back and forth, and he bit the inside of his cheek. Guess having siblings or not changes how someone thinks. I figured people would need to be who they are no matter what, but maybe I would have needed to be at least a little different if I had to share my parents and life all the time. I'm glad both of you are who you are. I can relate to that, Derek. I wonder who I'd be without Elizabeth. I don't even want to imagine a world without Elizabeth. You quietly considered the topic. Well, I'm glad both of you are who you are. Thanks, Lane. Me too. But... The road was clear, so Derek caught the conversation, and his legs moving again. He started preparations by listing off what you'd need to gather when you made it back. Sugar, ideally some ice and really cold water, a pitcher or something like that. Do you have one of those lemon squeezers? We can do it by hand if we've gotta. With every object Derek recited, Cove nodded along plainly, but he was watching something off in the distance. His faraway thoughts made Derek's words reach him less and less until Derek noticed the lack of attention. He called to Cove more loudly to catch this attention. Are you okay, dude? Oh. And Cove blinked as his brain snapped back into place in the center of his head. It's nothing. What were we talking about? Derek spun his lemon bag into a mini tornado by twisting it around tight from the bottom and then releasing it. He snickered. No worries, just making plans for the lemonade. Okay. The rest of the trip passed by comfortably. Derek carried the conversation, and Cove really paid attention from then on. Once you'd arrived in your neighborhood and reached Cove's front door, the resident of the building opened it up without needing a key. It was already unlocked. Derek gasped upon seeing such a lack of security. Cove, however, was so relaxed and content that he yawned while going inside. That unknowingly cut off Derek's chance to question Cove about his choice not to lock the door. He simply followed his friend inside, and you did as well. Cove leisurely crossed his living room to drop his bag of water balloons on the coffee table for later. You left your little umbrellas there alongside it. Alright. Derek went straight into the kitchen. He had his lemon bag over his shoulder like a gym pack and flipped it over to sit beside the sink. He slipped his thumbs through the holes of the mesh and tore it. Where's your colander? Cove paused, looking incredulously at the wall, then he turned and projected his confusion across the counter towards the source of it. My what? Undeterred, Derek was quick to offer a rephrase. A strainer? In the lower cabinet. The one on the left? Derek pressed his hands to the marble and leaned forward with a grin. Thanks, Cove. I've never heard a strainer be called a colander in my life. I can't believe you didn't know what a colander is. You learn something new every day, huh, Cove? Oh yeah, I totally knew what Derek was talking about. Just watching them. You learn something new every day, huh, Cove? Yeah. Then the spiky-haired chef ducked down and disappeared from your sight. If you could call someone who made lemonade a chef, that is. When he popped back into view, framed by the back wall and the support beams at the front of the kitchen, Derek was holding a silver strainer. He plopped it into the sink, and it sharply clinked against the metal basin. Derek took the bag he set nearby and dumped every single lemon into the waiting container. He turned on the faucet so he could clean the cheery fruits. The sound of running water added an extra layer of relaxation to the atmosphere. Cove stopped dawdling and joined the already hard-at-work Derek in the kitchen. He grabbed a cutting board and a large knife from an upper drawer. It was his house, and he'd wordlessly claimed responsibility for the riskiest part of making the lemonade. Cove also directed you towards the sugar and a few other things. As it turned out, Mr. Holden didn't have an actual lemon squeezer, so you were going to be doing that by hand. He did have a perfectly crystal-clear glass pitcher that'd be perfect for the lemonade. The body of it was a completely round ball shape. It had a narrowed edge that pulled in at the top, with one side pinched into a spout. As far as you could tell, it had never been used. Hey. Have you ever made lemonade before, Lane? Cove? Derek casually questioned the both of you while he hefted the so-called colander up and down to shake off some of the water clinging to the freshly washed lemons. I make it all the time. I have, but only in summer. I've done it a few times, maybe. I don't remember. Nope, never. I've done it a few times. I feel like when we were younger, we definitely made it together before, Cove. Me and Cove have made it together before. Cove scratched at the back of his head bashfully and chuckled. There was a pretty small amount of things you hadn't done together over the years of being across the street from each other. Yeah. Cool. Derek hummed while placing the lemons on a clean kitchen towel. He took a fruit from the colander with his left hand, passed it over to his right, and then placed that down while grabbing a new one. I've made it before, too. Fresh lemonade is so good. I'm excited for this. So am I. Your tools were all prepared now, so the team shifted into the actual creation of the traditional summer drink. Cove would cut the lemons into chunks. Derek gave Cove a tip to roll the lemons against the board before slicing them to get the juices going. You and Derek worked hard together to squish the fruits. You squeezed the lemon parts over the pitcher itself with a smaller strainer balanced over the mouth of it to catch the seeds. Piece by piece, you crushed the thick peel of it into itself to pop the little sacs of juice in the fruit. The tips of your fingers began to wrinkle after a while. But slowly, a murky liquid pooled at the bottom of the glass container. When enough fruits were chopped, Cove joined in the juicing effort. The three of you huddled around the counter together. You leaned over the one pitcher and strained to get everything you could into out of the little yellow menaces while not accidentally squirting acid into anyone's eyes. The precariousness of the situation aside, Cove continued the conversation with a question of his own. Derek, you've made lemonade, but did you ever do the whole lemonade stand thing where you try to sell it to random people who pass by? Oh yeah, it was a mess, and I think we only sold like 2 cups. Nicholas kept drinking our supply, and Jorge's effort to stop him spilled even more of it. Plus, the 2 kids fighting over the lemonade jar probably scared people away from the stall. But it's not like I was expecting that to be some kind of entrepreneurial success. It was for Nico to enjoy Jorge to have fun. They did. Mostly. As usual, tales of Derek's endeavors as a big brother got Cove to chuckle. You were also smiling, even though your fingers had started to cramp after so much lemon compacting. I didn't. Me, Cove, and Elizabeth did that too. I never got to do that. It's not fair. I didn't ever try. I could never talk to strangers like that. Hey, that's fair. It was pretty awkward when anyone did come by. But man, all this business talk makes me think about how I only met either of you because my dad partnered with Cove's dad's business. If that hadn't happened, you probably wouldn't have learned I existed. You still know each other, obviously. Derek squeezed his 12th lemon chunk with a fittingly sour expression on his face. He'd accidentally made himself feel like a third wheel. In the cluster of human juicers, Derek was in the middle, yet he began to fade despite being right next to you. You and Cove looked at one another from over Derek's lowered head. Cove pushed himself to smile through his concern, while also giving Derek's arm a little nudge with his elbow. I worry about that kind of thing sometimes, too. If my dad hadn't picked this street to move to, I wouldn't have met Lane. The bravery he mustered began to disintegrate after putting that truth to the front of his mind. Cove swallowed bitterly. I don't like it when I start thinking about that. But my dad still would have had this business, so I still would have met you. Sheepishly, Derek pressed his shoulders up around his face. He managed a small smile. Yeah, it's rough for all of us. Where your parents live and what your parents do has to matter so much to everything. Derek bit his lip, unwilling to let himself continue to speaking negatively. But, like a turtle coming out of his shell, Derek lifted himself off the counter and rejoined you and Cove at regular eye level. We did meet each other, and we're friends, and that's what counts. Exactly. What ifs don't make a difference because we're really all here. We could have met another way somehow. That's 3 of us who worry over this and will be old enough to decide everything for our lives. Smiling at them. Exactly. What ifs don't make a difference because we're really all here. Yeah. Cove quietly watched over his friend, soothed by his uplifted mood. Then his lips parted as a pleasant thought came to mind. Hey, this is where I was standing when I first met you. Oh yeah! Derek bounced up on his toes and tossed the lemon piece he'd been working on over to the trash can. It landed inside perfectly. But I was on the other side of the counter back then, and now I'm here in the kitchen with you. That caught your ear and you lifted one of your brows. You remember the night Cove told you he'd met a new kid named Derek, but he didn't say much about it. All you really knew was that their parents had started working together, and then Derek began to come around the neighborhood for visits. Derek could recognize an intrigued audience when he saw one, and did what he knew how to do, tell the rest of a story. Mr. Holden invited my dad over for a meal at his house after their partnership was official. He'd talked about Cove before, when him and my dad were getting to know each other. You can't get away from hearing about Mr. Holden's top-notch son if you spend any time with him. Off to the side, Cove mumbled with his embarrassment over what he clearly thought was an unnecessary addition. Derek laughed at the minor interruption off and went on. So my dad suggested that I come too, since we were the same age. Mr. Holden was apparently really into the idea. I had no idea what to expect from something like that, but I wanted to go a sort of business dinner. But I wanted to go to a sort of business dinner with my dad. It felt pretty cool to be invited, and then I went. Whatever I was imagining before I got there, Mr. Holden definitely wasn't it. I thought my dad was a casual for professional business person. But Cove's dad takes the cake. A warmth came to Cove's expression. Not the red-hot heat of fluster from before, but a gentleness that was based in his honest love for his parent. A lot of people don't expect Dad to be how he is. What did you think of me when you first met me, you know? Derek mindlessly scratched his damp hand against the back of his head. A stray lemon seed clung to one of the spikes of his hair. You didn't want to cut the 2 off, so the little bit went unmentioned. Honestly, when I spotted you in the back of the kitchen, I thought Mr. Holden had another older kid he was hiding, because there was no way that guy was 13. You were so tall and fit, and you just stared at people. You seemed like a tougher upper grade teen who would never talk to somebody like me. You snickered under your breath. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he was describing Elizabeth. Having that description be assigned to Cove Holden, of all people, was hilarious. Cove was equally startled by Derek's choice of words. His eyes opened wide in amazement. You thought I was tough? Yeah, I did, but, thought is definitely the right word for that. That instantly put Cove into a pouty mood. He pressed both of his palms against the marble countertop, not bothering to squeeze another lemon. Cove didn't want to play anymore. Teenager tantrum. Derek leaned his shoulder against Cove's side affectionately. He reached past him to the lemon slice Cove wasn't using and started to juice it himself. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with being a softie. I like that about you. Bringing Derek's statement to life, Cove visibly relaxed his stance. The tone of his voice was equally delicate. Guess it's not bad. Cove was honestly kidding himself if he thought he was anything other than a sensitive sweetheart. But just like Derek, that was something you treasured about him. It's great, Cove. Cove took a new piece of fruit and rejoined the lemonade-making efforts. Derek pinched an eye shut from the tension of crushing a chunk in his fist. He hesitantly continued the topic. So what about me? When you first met me, what kind of impression did you get? With much less force, Cove used both hands to work on his single lemon. He answered the question while staring off into space. That was likely the same expression Derek had seen the moment they met, the face he'd read as intimidated rather than easily distracted. I thought, he probably likes sports. All three of you shook from laughter, bumping against each other with your closeness like a bunch of grapes on a vine rustling in the wind. Okay, Lane, your turn. What did you think about me when we met? Oh! Your mind drifted back to a few months ago, before summer vacation had begun. You'd stepped out of your house in the late evening and Cove was sitting on the curb with someone else. Someone you'd never seen in your life. Not even in passing at school. A green-eyed boy with a football jersey who was joking around lightheartedly with your longtime neighbor. You'd guessed immediately that he was the Derek kid from the Holden's new business relationship. That or Cove had learned a magic spell to summon a new friend out of nowhere. You had stood there staring for only a second, but the newcomer noticed your presence quickly. He jumped right to his feet, jogged across the street, and stuck out his hand for you to shake. With that wide grin you were now so familiar with, he introduced himself to you as the first time as Derek. I thought you were so nice. I thought you were younger than Cove. I thought you were the politest teenager I'd ever met. I too thought this guy liked sports. Thought you were cute. Didn't know what to think. I thought you were the politest teenager I had ever met. Thanks? Can I ask what you thought about me? Derek's gaze shifted from the picture in front of him to settle on you instead. There was a focus in his eyes that made you hold your breath in anticipation. I thought you were really sweet. Wow. It was kind of flattering to know you'd made such a good first impression on Derek. Thank you for telling me. Well, I'm glad you didn't think I sucked. Okay. You smirked, you began to blush. Well, I'm glad you didn't think I sucked. Definitely not. By the way, you have a lemon seed in your hair. Oh! Derek raked his hands through his light brown strands blindly. Unfortunately, he focused on the top and the sides, so he never hit the right spot. One of your hands covered the laughter coming out of your mouth, and you used the other to point out the target on the back of his head. Finally, he was able to brush the seed onto the floor. He bent down to pick it up and dropped it to the side on the container. Thanks, Lane. You're welcome. We could add a little bit of the lemon zest, too. I'll do that. Derek fumbled to move the topic to something else. His darkening cheeks were probably the reason why. Do you have a grater or a peeler? Yeah. Cove gestured to the same drawer the knife had come from. Derek dug through it until he successfully retrieved a multi-textured grater. He took his stuff to the opposite side of the kitchen to not get in the way and worked with his back to you and Cove. Cove tilted his head thoughtfully. He was inspired by Derek's work ethic. If it's gonna be fancy lemonade with zest, we should do that thing where you put the whole slices in, too. I can cut a few of the leftover lemons. Cool. Lane, can you pour the water and sugar in the pitcher so it can start to dissolve? Yep. You started by filling up the sparkly jug with chilled filtered water from the fridge. You remembered to put ice in the drink, too. The diluted lemon juice sloshed around and threatened to spill over as you piled in the ice. You left some space for Cove's lemon slices. Finally, you took hold of the hefty bag of white sugar and pulled it close to the counter's edge. Stray grains of sugar that coated the bag came to stick against your still damp fingers instead. You felt like you were building a sandcastle at the beach. I'm not adding 2 cups, and I'm not filling it until the sugar piles at the bottom of the glass, and nobody got time for that. Also, not just 1 pinch of sugar, that's not enough. So half a cup or a full cup of sugar. I don't know how many lemons we used, and I don't know how big this container is, so we're just gonna do a full cup of sugar. People and teenagers like sucrose. You searched around the kitchen until you found a colorful ceramic mixing spoon. You dunked it into the pitcher and carefully stirred. A quiet smile grew on your face as you watched the bits of sugar swirl around into the pale yellow drink. At this point, the separate ingredients had truly come together to become lemonade. Round and round you turned the spoon. It was almost hypnotic the way the juice whirled inside the pitcher. Your trance was broken by a sharp hiss at your side. Maybe I should have done half, but teenagers drink. We're just lucky that they did not pour the sugar into the globby bottom thing. Ain't nobody got time for that. Yep, but it looks like we'll have to deal with Cove has sliced himself. Your trance was broken by a sharp hiss at your side. You dropped the spoon, losing it in the depths of the lemonade. It snapped your head towards Cove. He was holding his left hand up to his face. A thick bubble of dark red had slipped down from one of his fingers and left a streak over his palm. Oh, ouch. You okay? That's not great. Where do you keep the bandages? You screamed. You yell at Derek to get bandages. You completely freeze. No, that's not great. Where do you keep the bandages? Cove plainly shrugged. It's nothing. Without even thinking about it, Cove reached down his hand down to wipe the mess on his pants. Luckily for his trousers, Derek flipped around at the commotion. His tense, worried face took in the scene, and a disbelieving shout startled Cove into freezing. Don't do that! Cove stared incredulously from the corner of his eyes with his arm awkwardly sticking out from his side. His sudden pause in a strange position reminded you of the red light, green light game you'd played at your elementary school, except there was no green, and only red in Cove's version. I'm fine. No way. You gave him a firm nod in agreement. Cove needed to take care of himself. Derek stretched his arms up high to grasp the taller teen by the shoulders. He stepped backwards, getting Cove to move with him. We're gonna clean that off for real. Cove muttered and averted fine as he stumbled along with Derek, who was reversing out of the kitchen. Lane, do you mind cleaning up the cutting board? No, I'll take care of it. You gathered the knife into the cutting board and brought it over to the trash. The lemon slices couldn't be used in a drink after that. You used the knife to scrape them off and into the bag. Then you got to rinsing the board and the knife in the sink with soap and hot water. You switched between staring down at the suds and checking over the counter for the boys. You were careful to not accidentally get a cut of your own, but it was hard not to wonder what was going on down the hall. By the time you'd finished washing up, Cove and Derek re-emerged in the living room. An unassuming brown bandage was wrapped around the cut on Cove's finger. It's okay. It wasn't deep. We washed it off, got it clean, and put a bandage on it. Good as new. Derek marched with the confidence right back into the kitchen. Cove hesitated in the living room. Words. Word soup. He waved apologetically. Hey. Hey, you're really okay? I definitely am. I just nicked myself when a lemon slipped. The juice stinging me was way worse than the cut itself. That's a relief. Thanks for helping, Derek. Thank you too, it's cleaner in here. He held his hand for you to high five. It had been washed clean of the lemon juice that had coated it before. High five. No high fives, only high fives. You swung your palm forward and clapped Derek back. He pumped his arms enthusiastically as a follow-up. Cove walked over to join the two of you, smiling ruefully. Thanks for caring. Always, man. What now? Well? He took a second to look between you and Cove as he puzzled out a next step, and then he beamed. Let's try our lemonade. It doesn't need the slices or the zest. Derek gave an exaggerated wave across the front of his chest, blowing the whole thing off. Cove eagerly supported the sentiment. He was more than ready to put the prior incident behind him. Yeah, lemonade doesn't need to be fancy, it's lemonade. I dropped the spoon. Derek nodded twice as he strained to lift the nearly full pitcher. He had to balance on his tiptoes to pour the juice into the set of 3 glasses that had been put out earlier. If Derek noticed there was a spoon clattering around in there, he pretended that he didn't. Let's take a glass for a taste. At the same time, Cove and Derek tipped their cups and took full gulps of the drink. They savored the taste, and you watched as their reactions formed. Cove smiled contentedly, while Derek cheered with enthusiasm. Mmm! It's good. Derek gave a thumbs up to that. It's a perfect cup of lemonade. Good work, team. You gladly joined them in taking a sip, enjoying every drop of your hard work. It was absolutely refreshing. Cove chugged the rest of his drink and then placed the empty cup down firmly. His enthusiasm was continuing to rise. Let's fill the water balloons. Slowly, cautiously, Derek questioned Cove's plan. He didn't want to ruin things, but expressing concern was more important. Will you really be alright in a water balloon fight with your finger and stuff? Cove remained relaxed in the face of Derek's worry. He wasn't going to bring the mood down after the commotion he caused earlier. He responded to the inquiry by slickly pulling out the big gun. Your neighbor smirked as he held up his left arm over his chest, showing the full length of the jagged, pale scar that marked him. I've had worse. Derek's eyes widened and his mouth was stuck hanging open. Derek could only imagine what Cove had gone through to get an injury with such a lasting impact. But if Cove Holden said he could manage a cut, he could manage that cut. Whoa! You know, you're pretty tough after all. Brother, did you not notice until now? How did you not notice? Or did you just forget about it? It's more likely you just forgot about it, but still. The compliment had Cove preening. He caressed his trusty scar and giggled childishly. Yeah, I think it will be okay. Alright, let's do it. Nothing else needed to be said. The 3 of you busted open the baggie of water balloons, pushed the tools of your lemonade production aside, and got to work on another summer group project. You stretched the open end of a water balloon over the faucet. The plastic fit snugly around the silver spout. You still kept your hands on it to make sure the balloon didn't pop off and shoot a stream into your face like a busted water fountain. Derek flipped the handle up for you, and the first saggy balloon rapidly expanded. Out of the bag, the balloon was a dark emerald color, but in only a few seconds, the bloated sack of water had stretched so thin the green had become almost translucent. It was as pale as Cove's hair. Before it was pushed beyond its limits, Derek turned off the faucet again. You carefully pinched the strained top of your perfectly plumped toy, and then harvested it off the silver vine. Cove reached out for it as he intended to tie the balloons while you and Derek continued filling. Derek looked between the balloon and Cove's hand and called a timeout. He'd been a little overeager to get involved and realized in that moment that their team arrangement wasn't the most efficient. He requested to switch positions with Cove. Cove rolled his eyes but couldn't argue. His bandage could easily be yanked right off by the taut loops of plastic that formed around the fingers while tying them. Your optimized party got back into action with you hooking balloons into place, Cove handling water distribution, and Derek sealing the deal with a knot. Soon you had a couple dozen shiny water balloons overflowing in the sink basin. Cove pushed off from the counter silently. He disappeared from the kitchen and left you and Derek wondering. He went down in the hall into his bedroom. He was only gone for a moment before stepping back into the hall with a pure white hole-speckled laundry basket. The point of that was obvious, but his choice of bin did get a bit of ribbing from Derek. Did you dump your clothes on the floor for that? Yeah, they were already dirty. Oh. Derek blinked. He hadn't expected that to be true or for Cove to be so straightforward about it. You snickered at the exchange, still casually leaning against the sink. When Cove dropped the very newly empty laundry basket on the tile, you created a few water balloons in your arms and placed them inside. Cove and Jarek joined in with the transfer. Eventually, every water balloon had made it safely into the basket. Nice work. Derek and Cove each took one side and lifted while you helped steer by grabbing the back end. Moving as one, the three of you shuffled out of the kitchen and through the living room to take your treasure chest of jiggly jewels into the neighborhood. The door was opened, the drop from the curb to the street was overcome, and you successfully placed the laundry basket in the center of the empty road. Well, we're here. We are here. Derek slowly curled and uncurled his fist. Cove didn't take his eyes off you or Derek. No one made a move for the pile. You broke the pause and grabbed a weapon. You held your breath from the growing tension. We're grabbing that balloon. Balloon time. Derek wasn't going to be caught off guard. He stuck both his hands deep into the mass and came out with 2 balloons. Cove attempted to keep up and almost tripped over himself to get a water balloon of his own. In quick succession, Derek launched one shot at you and the other one at Cove. Ah! You felt the impact of a solid object slamming against your chest before it burst into a million pieces and a shock of cold water seeped into the front of your dress. Cove was left sputtering and with a dark stain at the lower edge of his top. He shook the hit off and chucked a balloon directly at Derek in return. It exploded against his right shoulder. No one was dry anymore and no one was safe. The war was on. He ran to put distance between you and them. I'm not picking a target yet. Getting a hit in was a far lower priority than not getting hit again. You hightailed it out of the danger zone with your water balloon in hand. The 2 boys dug into the pile yet again to restock their supplies. The water balloon fight was in full force. Derek sprinted up and down the street, making himself into a moving target. He'd only make a mad dash for the center area when he ran out of balloons. Cove had no fear of being an easy mark and stayed right by the laundry basket, lobbing strike after strike at you and Derek. I can take shots from cover. I can chase Derek. I can compete with Cove for control over the pile. I'm chasing Derek. He's the only one who's actively... He was the one who started it. As fast as he was, you stayed hot on his heels. Derek had to duck from shots raining over him thanks to Cove and watch his back on account of you. He darted around, skipping, jumping, and changing course in a mostly vain attempt to avoid the onslaught, though he breathed heavily through a massive grin. Laughter and water splashes filled the normally quiet Sunset Bird neighborhood. You were convinced the mean grandparents would jump out and shout about the noise. Luckily, no one interrupted your revelry, and even if someone had, they would have been putting their dryness at risk by confronting your group. Rapidly, the amount of balloons dwindled until each person only had one left in hand and the laundry basket had nothing except a little puddle at the bottom with scraps of rubber scattered in it. Arms were held high in the air, taking aim, and eyes shifted from one option to the other. Yeah, get him! Water fight, water fight! Derek wound his hand further back. Cove and you couldn't take your eyes off him. Your teeth gritted as you desperately tried to calculate where the balloon would fly. Would it be Cove or you? However, Derek chose neither. He launched it straight up in the air. It reached an impressive height. You could barely see the speck of yellow against the vast blue sky, until it inevitably sailed down and smacked against the tarmac. Derek broke into more snickers the exact moment the balloon broke into 1,000 drops of water. He wasn't the only one amused by the stunt. Cove's smile bent and he opened his fingers to let his balloon drop harmlessly to the ground. Cove didn't pick it back up. Instead, he brutally brought his foot against his own weapon and decimated it under his heel. A jovial truce had been formed between the two. I can toss it in the air. I can break it against my head. I can stomp on it. Or I can throw it at the boys. I think I want to throw it at the boys. I think I'm going to throw it at Derek. Because while we've been having this whole water fight, and he's been running around, he was the one who started it, so I picked up a water balloon. That's all I did. I didn't throw it yet. He threw it at Derek, but that ceasefire didn't have to apply to you. Without mercy, you pelted Derek with a final blow. It splattered against the center of his torso, and he was left in a stunned daze. And then he cheered. That was great! That was great. That was how the grandest battle your neighborhood had likely ever seen came to an end. You were all dripping wet and out of breath, and you couldn't be happier. Derek rubbed his hands together in satisfaction before crouching to the ground to start collecting tiny bits of water balloon debris. Cove strolled around to gather confetti like trash on his own accord as well. There didn't have to be a discussion. Derek and Cove had that quality in common, a distaste for litter. You appreciated that about both of them and joined in to help pick up the pieces off the ground. You quietly wandered around, filling your fists with the rubbery remains as the sun crept behind the condo roofs. Your shadows grew longer in the waning light. You felt the damp cling of your clothes more acutely as the excitement died down. Your team managed to finish cleaning before night had completely fallen. All the trash was dumped into a tall green trash can at the side of Cove's house. With all that remained of the carnage being a few drying watermarks occasionally spotting the street, your group had returned to the state you'd originally started in, directionless relaxation. Cove had been perfectly willing to return to his house while still wet and scrounge up fresh glasses of lemonade. Plus he had your little umbrellas tucked under his arm. It was a struggle to balance it all. But Cove took one for the team as someone who actually lived there. You and Derek didn't have to go in and make a mess of the Holden home, though you imagined Cove's dad wouldn't have cared. He passed a drink to you and one to Derek and then used his free hand to flip the laundry basket over. It was less flimsy than it looked because Cove sat on it and it didn't buckle at all. Derek politely passed on the seat the Cove provided. He remained standing while shifting his weight from one foot to another. I'm sitting on the ground. If you cared about keeping your clothes pristine, you wouldn't have gotten into a water balloon fight. A bit of dirt couldn't hurt. Cove quietly took a sip of his lemonade. Derek circled the top of his glass with the tip of one finger, watching Cove. How's your hand? Cove savored another taste of the drink, let out a refreshed sigh, and then answered, It's still fine. Cool. The ritual of checking on him was complete, and Derek could only chuckle bashfully over his habit. Cove smiled over the rim of his cup. There was comfort in knowing that Derek would always care. Before enjoying the rest of the lemonade, Cove remembered to anoint his cup with one of the mini tropical umbrellas. Derek and you both got your own from the box. You got to have pretty fancy lemonade after all. The air was warm enough to be comfortable even with your wet clothes. Lemonade, little umbrellas, and good company. That was what days like these were for. You couldn't get much better. Cove agreed contentedly, without you even having to say so. Summer really is the best season. I think so too. I was just thinking about that. Me 3? It's okay, I guess. Summer is the worst of them. It's only because of the best because of school vacation. It wins by default. But I was just thinking about that. Great minds think alike. A gentle expression rested on Derek's face as he spoke softly. It'd be nice if things could be like this all the time, huh? But then Derek lifted his glass and then spoke in mock outrage to the world at large. Why can't it always be summer break? Despite it being an obvious joke, Derek's words struck a chord with Cove. His total chill hardened into seriousness. He downed his second glass of lemonade and hopped to his feet. I'm gonna go check on something. You should come. Both of you. He considered that a sufficient offer because Cove simply walked back to the front of his house and left the empty glass at the side of the door. Derek's gaze followed his friend and he lifted one brow. What are we going to see? You'll see when we get there. You're probably going to try to talk me out of it, so you don't need to know now. What? He almost dropped his cup. Derek twisted his head to track Cove's move with saucer-wide eyes. Or maybe Lane would. This is going to be trouble. Come on. Still completely confident, Cove strolled up the road. Derek gulped, but not the lemonade. He pointed a panicked glance at you. We should go. You pushed yourself off your seat and stood by Derek. All right. Derek hooked his open hand through the side handle of the laundry basket. He jogged on his tiptoes over to Cove's condo. The bin bumped against the street behind him. He flung it in front of him and left it there in the entry. He placed his half-empty lemonade beside Cove's. You were right behind him. You dropped the little umbrellas into the laundry basket and completed the set of glasses by placing yours next to theirs. Let's go. After another light jog, you caught up to Cove. He was going at a leisurely pace and smirked when he saw the two of you in the corner of his vision. Hey. Hi. Together, you, Cove, and Derek left your neighborhood and returned to the main sidewalk that you took to reach the grocery store hours earlier. An exchange of glances between you and Derek was the only interaction you had during the walk. Cove kept his sun-kissed face forward and his mouth shut. Shopping wasn't on your neighbor's mind because that building was passed without acknowledgement. He was taking you further down the path. Only about a minute later, your progress was halted by a row of strikingly orange traffic cones and a string of droopy "Do Not Cross" banners. Should we go around? No, we're here. Huh? Derek stalled. Cove, however, got onto his knees in front of the blocked-off area. His eyes were glinting with intention. I saw this when we were leaving, but people were working on it. The concrete is still wet, and there's no one around now. Yet again, Cove had knocked a gasp out of Derek. You're not going to mess it up, right? Cove didn't have to say anything to answer. He shared a coy smile, and that was enough. Oh, Cove, that's really bad. No, it's perfect. Why am I not surprised? Cove, you can't. Yep, it makes sense why you didn't say this before. You shook your head and sighed. You stared nervously in case someone caught you. Shook your head and sighed. Cove fearlessly stuck his finger into the muddy gray concrete. He slowly etched out a series of numbers. When he was done, the corner of the block had 2011 scribbled into it for all to see. He surveyed his work with pride while wiping his dirtied finger on the side of his pant leg. Let's see. You wrote your initials. You wrote all three of your initials. You added summer above Cove's 2011. You drew a heart. You drew a smiley face. You could only watch as Cove defaced the sidewalk. I'm going to write the sidewalk. I'm going to write summer. Summer. That made more sense to you than just having it be the year. That's nice. Derek stared hard at the soft, forbidden canvas and slowly crouched down. He paused, bit his lip, then ultimately pressed one finger into the tacky surface to leave a small print. He'd left a sign of his presence, there on that day right along with Cove and you. Relief came into Derek's features once he finished. Hopefully it dries before anyone finds out. Yeah. The single word was only a whisper, but it was warm and pure. I'm surprised you did it, Derek. So am I. Cove dusted his pants off as he stood after a job well done. Derek shot up as well, newly invigorated. He looked to the sky and squinted at the sun. The day was coming to an end, but no one could say your group had wasted it. That was true for the entire summer. No matter what happened when school started again and when an unknown future arrived, you'd still have all the memories you made together when you had the chance and the things you left behind. Rebel! Rebel, rebel. Alright. I think I'll do one more. And I think I'll do one of the top ones because I feel like they're shorter overall than the DLC ones. And since we made food and lemonade, we'll do dinner because that makes sense to me. And then I will be done because I'm starting to feel it in my throat. But the longer I do this, the longer I'll be able to go. Who knows? Either way, I'm having fun and I'm glad you guys are here. So let's move on to dinner. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. It'd been shaping up to be an ordinary day like any other until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Yeah, I'll go. It was, huh? Oh. It seemed Cove still had more to say, and you had just interrupted him. Oops. Cool. Well, oops. He stumbled a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again. My mom and dad, they really want you to be there. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. Fun is the key. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Can you? Come over, I mean? Yeah, I can come. I'll have to ask my moms and get back to you. No, I can't make it. Or why am I the only one invited? Or did you mean the whole family? I'll ask my moms. I'm a responsible child. I'll have to ask my moms and get back to you. Okay, tell me when you can. He sounded notably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for a dinner today that serious? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that, for now anyway. You called your ma right afterwards and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to give you permission for it. No problems there. Ma wasn't one to complain about you spending time with Cove. Cove got a quick call from you afterwards, so he knew for sure that you would attend the dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple of times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both Cove's parents were there. It was exciting, you were apprehensive, the idea made you curious, you didn't think it would be especially interesting. You couldn't say you were thrilled. I think apprehensive. Even though I know both of them, I don't know what they're going to be like together, and they've proven problematic towards each other, so. You didn't know what to expect from this dinner party. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you. Hey, Elaine. Welcome. Please come on in. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kinda last second. Thanks for having me. Of course. Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey, Lane. Welcome to our humble abode. Sup, Mr. Holden. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. It could have done curious, yeah. That probably would have worked, too. Too late now, but we can always do it another time. Who knows? Hope you're hungry, 'cause I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden nowhere to be seen, and with Mr. Holden busy, and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed. He does. He's got very pretty hair. The boy got the waviness from his father and the green from his mom. And it does appear, because her eyebrows are also green, that it's naturally green. We're in the land of anime protagonists. She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, and then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook while they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef. Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more. Sorry about that, Lane. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in! She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included. But since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how are you doing? I'm doing good. That's what I like to hear. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some light pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. Lane, you made it. Thanks for coming. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hey, weirdo. Cove frowned at your playful greeting. Weirdo? Yeah, 'cause you're being all weird. He huffed, but he didn't deny it, which meant that he knew he was acting off, too. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares, too, meeting them with narrowed eyes. Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. But as he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he'd asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when food's ready to go. Silly. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. Honestly, it feels like he more often comes over to my house than I go to his, so it's not my first time to go to his room. But it's definitely rare for me to go over to his room instead of him coming over to my room. You had visited Cove's room before, but only rarely. Cove got to the door first, and opening it and stepping inside, you joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand between your feet. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and got it all over his personal space. That's just how he was. A little bit of a mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it, not like your moms would have if you'd done it. You can sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and let you decide. You can sit on the chair, I can not sit, or I can sit next to him. I'm gonna sit next to him. Why not? Cove smiled when you made yourself at home beside him. You grinned back. With the silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. Yeah. He is a little bit of a mess, and he's my friend, and I care. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish? My dad bought them for me not long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Oh, that's a long time. He peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly. Mostly I call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. I've had a lot of fish and I'm not that good with coming up with names. Funny, surprising, relatable. That's relatable, especially with fish. You didn't have pets, but you always had trouble naming your stuffed animals or whatever else. It was such a hard choice. Artist problems. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small red orangish fish. It was minding its own business away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher. That other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish? Yeah, it's nice. Then he turned to look at you, tilting his head to one side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with medium fish. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting for you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Alright, so we got a reddish fish, medium size, with black spots in the tail. Alrighty. Type in a name. I'm gonna call it Sunspot. Alright, it's Sunspot. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. You smiled proudly at Sunspot as it swam through the tendrils of plants, disappearing and then reappearing soon after. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house. Not even fish. The corner of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like the fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of the tank and feed them and they'll be okay. I don't mind it too much. You have to do so much for a pet. It's a lot of work and responsibility. My moms take it super seriously, and that's why they don't just want to get one. That's true. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief confused look from Cove. One time, Elizabeth came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My moms didn't think much of it at first, though. But that night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest. A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got her the answer. So she brought it home. She had the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during the night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. Can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. There are ups and there are downs. It's true. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while. That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you'd considered your relationship with your moms, too. They were absolutely the best. You couldn't even consider having another option. You couldn't have better parents. A thought struck you, and your attention suddenly settled back on Cove. Yeah, my moms might not let Elizabeth or me have pets and stuff, but at least they've never tried to pay someone to be my friend. You grinned over at Cove. It had been years since he found out about your first meeting with his dad, and it was easy to joke about these days. Cove tossed his head back in an overly dramatic way, sighing heavily. I almost forgot about that. Really? No, not really. I'll never be able to forget that actually happened for the rest of my life. It's gonna humiliate me forever. I'm really sorry about what happened, Cove. Then I'm sorry since I'm going to bring it up forever. Yeah, I get why that'd be embarrassing. You laughed. You stayed quiet. He says it's an overdramatic way, so then I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it up forever. Maybe I'll offer to pay you $20 so you stop reminding me about it. You barked at a laugh, not expecting Cove to join in on the kidding. A tiny, amused smile curled along his lips at your reaction. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy, making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your head in unison. It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door he'd been locked behind for most of the night, but didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked at you from the side. It's been awkward. Really? I couldn't tell. You were being sarcastic, of course. It was fairly obvious that he felt weird around his parents generally, and especially lately. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be a good time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason they wanted me to come over tonight? It hasn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around. But now you're here. Huh. You hadn't considered that, but it sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. At the table, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table. Wow, I didn't read that sentence right the first time. Beside the windows overlooking the back of the house, food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast. I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning. Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Lane, on such short notice, too. I'm a polite child. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks for having me over. Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourself to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were lots of sides and optional sauces to add. You could work with this. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, so you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a little bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, could you pass me the salsa verde? Of course! Thank you! Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous? Of what? Your cooking's nothing to seize at, Kyra. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You joined right in without a thought. I didn't know you could cook. You didn't? Who do you think has been feeding me and Cove all this time? I don't know. Maybe you guys get takeout and stuff. I think you could afford it, I think. Mr. Holden sputtered, acting grossly offended, but he was grinning good-naturedly. Takeout? If we ate that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we wouldn't have made it this long. Cove's mom leaned towards you, her eyes twinkling merrily. I know it might seem like Cliff is a big goof, but he's got some skills. Hey now, that sounds less like a compliment and more like an insult. If that's how you want to take it, I can't stop you, can I? Such disrespect. And in my own home. Sorry, my friend. Everything looks great, Dad, as always. Thanks, sport. Glad you think so. Cove smiled. It was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Brief silences interspersed his small talk. You piled some food onto your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then. You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you. How's everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? Have you been keeping busy during the summer? Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break. Overwhelmed by the sudden rush of questions, more than happy to answer, you were surprised, but you didn't mind the interest. You felt uncomfortable with the attention. Honestly, I'm going to go with you're surprised, but you didn't mind the interest. You half expected it, but didn't realize you were going to get asked anyway, sort of thing. You hadn't expected so many questions, and all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from how the summer was going? You answered them how things were at a house. It's been good. Oh, that's wonderful. You told them how your moms were doing. You should ask them about it yourself, but moms are fine. Just kind of busy with work and stuff. That's nice, the doing fine part, not the busy with work part, obviously. You mentioned things you'd done this summer. You should know what I've been up to since so much has included your family. Mr. Holden laughed loud and short. You caught him off guard with that. A fair point. And that was that for your question answering. Kyra nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you. Did you know, Cliff, that Lane is really into socializing? Mr. Holden's face lit up and he stopped eating so he could lean forward. His arms braced against the table. Oh, that's right. Very cool. Oh, he's sculpting. Yeah. I said socializing, but I'm gonna, like, check. Yeah, it says socializing. I don't know what that means. It's not a big thing. Ah, don't downplay your interests like that. I don't know where you got socializing from. Kyra's right. If you enjoy it, then it's definitely a big thing. Thanks. Cove's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused on their respective plates. You noted, not for the first time, that Cove's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. Yeah, why not? I also like other things. Would you like to tell us more? Yeah, absolutely. They looked genuinely eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kyra set down her fork and rested her arms at her sides. Letting loose a satisfied sigh, her plate was completely empty. That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. You ate until you were satisfied. It had taken you some time to finish it all, but eventually you'd cleared your plate. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now, toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Lane. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner. What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Lane has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited them over sooner? Cove was always the one going over to Lane's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Woodrow family to host my kid? Kyra shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. The three of you looked at Cove in unison. Alright. I will see you later. Thank you for coming, Eclectic. I always appreciate your support. His small sound now being more than enough to get the focus on him after his silence, but by now he'd stopped fiddling with his fork. Would it be alright for Lane to stay over, like, for the night? He shot you a shy glance then, smiling a little. If you're cool with that. Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing up a hand in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversations. It's nice. You can sort of just like squish, 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 squish. See all of the different features on his face. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. It looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the group up. Blech. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear the verdict, too. Well, Kyra and I think that should be fine, but... He lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk with Lane's parents to make sure they'd be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Lane's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eyes and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was all right for someone, whether it was all right or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping he could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. I'm not gonna do this one, because you can just... I don't think we're gonna be subtle about it, but... You gave him some words of encouragement, patted him on the back. Psst, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. Hey, you could always sneak into my room again. You patted about it, too. I think I'll say this one, because I think this one. Psst, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. If you get your home phone too, then we can still talk even though I'll be back home. Cove's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. It may or may not end up being possible, but it was worth trying. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet, after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange, sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who's up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hand. She beamed at their expressions and stepped up further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. The smile had yet to leave her lips. This is gonna be good. You enjoyed her enthusiasm. Cove's mom was funny, upbeat, and easygoing. You leaned closer to watch her expertly shuffle the cards. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things up enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. All right, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall instead, without even a word. You stared confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and rifled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when at home. He puts it away. What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. He blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. You guys use real money? Even when you're only playing card games with each other? While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up. Yeah. That's right. $5 per round per person. Winner take all. Go big or go home. Oh, are you planning kicking Lane to the curb? Or do you intend on donating to the guest of honors pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease. If Lane wants to play, I'll fund their way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested an arm across the top of a knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen before. This is weird. This is an awkward situation to be in. If you'd known about this beforehand, you could have grabbed some money and stashed away, or done something to prepare for this. You can let me pay for Lane. They're my friend. Mr. Holden grinned with a chuckle. Alright, but I concede you're too polite for me. Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation, Kyra softened her competitive smile. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. No biggie. What do you think? Alright, so if we're just doing Go Fish, I'll do Go Fish, but like, definitely. I want to play, but like, why do you guys pay each other for literally everything? This is why Mr. Holden thought it was okay to pay for an 8-year-old to be a friend to his child with $20. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. I know my strategies. You were really good at Go Fish. You usually won when you played with your own family, to the point that Elizabeth refused to play that game with you anymore. Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash but are still refusing to quit while they're behind. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you using an elbow and then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked, and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kyra's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel the tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kyra began dealing out the cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You run right away, which meant you had money to keep playing the second round. You're a natural! Nicely done. You'd better keep those wits about you for the next round, though. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fist. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time, you even spotted a smile on his lips. You won quite a few games to your delight. You had a hefty money pile on your side of the table. You must forget paying Lane Swain in now, huh? No way! Lane might be beating me, but they're also beating you two. Cove turned towards you and smiled, looking pleased at your ability to match his mom and dad. You smirked and raised your hand for a high five, which he was willing to give you. Sweet. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back, looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got to come over to spend this chance with the three of them. That's a weird family. I think that's a little bit weird. But I think that's a good place to end it. I hope you all had fun. I hope that all of these silly little things that we do right now on this channel are enjoying and make you guys interested in doing stuff for yourself. Until our signals cross again, I hope you have a wonderful time doing whatever it is you want to do or need to do. Until next time I see you.